What would you say? I'm trying to think of like how you'd separate a discussion between an argument, like in politics or religion, because I feel like they go hand in hand, kind of like my grandpa gets so into it on one side, but then he can't see the other side type of thing.
Well, as you probably saw in my class, so I do it by question. So why do you believe that?
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think she or he is good? And for me, what I've done is try to really be firm on understanding the difference between facts, feelings, and opinions.
Okay.
I'm a sworn constitutional officer, so I have to respect and defend your ability to have opinions,
Mm-hmm.
and I will. But understand that just because you're hearing opinions, regardless of where you're hearing from, whether it's a television, some blog, some website,
Mm-hmm.
they're more opinions than they are facts. I think being factually structured is it's boring to a lot of people. But there's, I always utilize economics, utilize history, but the facts are the facts.
Mm-hmm.
Now, everybody has an opinion of those, and some of those were definitely opinions of people at that time, whenever in history you're looking at,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's 10 years ago, 40 years ago, 400 years ago. But you can look at things and learn to be your own researcher. I think, secondly, the more you are objective, and that means not if you're coming in and, well, this is just the way I believe, or the other people are all wrong, or they're all idiots, or one thing, if you want to have a good discussion, no name calling,
Mm-hmm.
And try to be understanding of other and respectful. Most importantly, of the other person's perspective, not necessarily what they're saying, but where are they coming from? This is the most difficult part. When I try to talk to people, I talk to everybody as first off as equal and human being.
Mm-hmm.
Then when they say something, okay, what's that perspective? Where did they grow up? Where do they live? What's been their life experiences?
Mm-hmm.
What have been some of the more pertinent things that have happened in their life? When you're talking to somebody that might be really all, get really emotional about
Mm-hmm.
things. Well, I had one, and they were all emotional about crime and what's going on. And I asked them, so were you ever a victim of crime?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it just lowers the temperature a bit. And yes, no, yes, I was. Here's what happened. Well, how did it make you feel? And again, once you start developing that kind of conversation capability and a little bit of empathy,
Mm-hmm.
you can have better conversations.
Mm-hmm. Right. Where would you suggest, or where do you get like a lot of your facts? Because I know some of the news sites just spew their opinions at you.
Yeah, I read, and I always encourage people to read multiple sources of the same event,
topic or event. Okay.
Yeah, it is really always fascinating to me to do that.
Yeah.
I'll read the Wall Street Journal version. I'll read something online of the same event, something from BBC, something from an international standpoint.
Yeah.
It's a world event, and from that, my brain is okay. You're able to do some discernment, but you don't, and especially because what's the perspective? Who's writing it? So you start looking at authors, you start looking at background,
Mm-hmm.
and again, when it comes to a lot of world events, even state events, the more you can emotionally unattach from them. I'm not emotionally. I think people get so emotionally wrapped up in the things.
Yeah.
And even like what we were talking about later, I can talk about what happened in the 60s and 70s, but I'm not necessarily, as some people close to me have told me, I'm not nostalgic. It's like, oh, I wish. No, it's not at all. I understand what happened, what we did. I was there. What we tried to do. What happened didn't happen at that time. And so now, listening how people interpolate certain things or miscast certain things.
Yeah.
It's a lot of people confuse. Even now, it's kind of amazing because it's your own history, how people don't differentiate between the 60s and the 70s, for one thing.
Mm-hmm.
But each year in the 60s, was different.
Right.
Was remarkably different. And, the innocence, as you started seeing and people getting more involved, younger people especially getting more involved, it changed a lot of, and again, you have to have that perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't a matter of, I think what we do is, you're asking a great question. And I've always been of the ilk, and I was taught this when I was younger, in a lot of different ways, but people want to be so judgmental.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking, well, that's probably, you're not going to be able to discern a lot of facts if you're judging beforehand, for one thing. And judging is different than, okay, who wrote this? Why did they write it? Being curious is really good. But being so judgmental because somebody doesn't believe like you did or doesn't come from the same background. And throughout history, it's been proven that always leads to some bad circumstances for humans. When one group judges another, or one group says, "Oh, we're all right, you're all wrong."
Yeah.
That it's tribal. It's been around for as long as humans have existed, and it's always caused all kinds of conflicts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And interpersonal conflicts, as well as tribal conflicts, as well as expands.
Mm-hmm.
It's done more harm than good.
Huh. Yeah, and it's all perspective. I'm thinking like, I don't know somebody and then I meet them and then my perspective shifts on them. The perspectives like shift all the time, and one person's perspective is different from another person's perspective. So you have to respect both sides and see where they're coming from and kind of work from a point of empathy where you can like get in their shoes kind of thing.
Exactly. Empathy is a very, very strong and can be a very, very good attribute in terms of really understanding where another person's coming from.
Mm-hmm.
But it also doesn't mean that you just capitulate to that. It's if you're not fully believing, it's okay, what's the counter to that?
Mm-hmm.
With different circumstances. So why do they feel that way?
Mm-hmm.
And while I have empathy for some of the suffering you might have been through, was what caused that? Was it an absolute belief system?
Yeah.
When we know as humans, we know as children, we learn and we forget that, and people try to sometimes beat it out, but do harm to children, and to not let them be as curious as we are naturally, and be as, why is that? Oh, don't question me, young man.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember we had a lot of that when I was young. It was, well, that's not yours to question.
Yeah.
Well, yes, it is.
Mm-hmm.
Every human, I believe, has an obligation to question. I mean, why are we given this great apparatus, this brain, this